The night sky above Earth looked peaceful, filled with glittering stars that seemed silent and eternal. But deep in the void, something unusual stirred. In the year 2137, humanity had already built great observatories in space. Hundreds of satellites scanned the heavens, and massive orbital stations circled Earth like shining watchtowers. For most days, they heard nothing except natural waves and radiation from distant stars. But on one quiet evening, a signal arrived. Strange, sharp and desperate. Dr. Alara Voss, a communications specialist working on the orbital research station Horizon, was the first to notice it. She sat in her small lab, screens glowing around her. The computers beeped with strange patterns, not like the random noise of space. At first, she thought it was interference, but when she adjusted the filters, the signal grew stronger, repeating, in a steady rhythm. "Station command," Alara said over the comm, her voice tense. "I'm receiving something. It's not natural." Within minutes, the control room filled with officers, engineers, and scientists. The data poured onto the main display, bursts of energy carrying structured codes. After hours of work, the team finally decoded the first fragment. The words appeared in translation across the screen. "We call to the stars. We beg the guardians of light. Protect us from the devourers. If God's here, save us." The room fell silent. For the first time in history, humans had received a direct plea for help from another civilization. Doubts and fears news spread quickly across Earth. Governments, military forces, and media outlets debated endlessly. Was this real, or some trick? Could it be a trap by unknown powers? Or was it truly a dying people begging for salvation? At the United Earth Council in Geneva, leaders gathered for emergency meetings. Holographic displays lit the vast chamber, showing the alien words again and again. Admirals and generals argued with scientists and diplomats. "We cannot risk our people for a distant cry in the dark," said one admiral. "It could be dangerous. We know nothing of them." "But what if it's true?" Dr. Alara countered. She had been brought to the council as a witness. Her calm voice carried a weight of urgency. "These beings are reaching out because they believe no one else will answer. If we ignore them, we prove that humanity is deaf to suffering beyond our borders." Another leader frowned. "They call for gods, not humans." "Why should we answer? A prayer not meant for us." General Malik Chen, head of Earth's defense fleet, leaned forward. His eyes were sharp, his tone steady. "Because perhaps no god will come. And if not us, then who? If humans cannot protect them, no one will." Searching the source to act, they first had to know where the signal came from. Astronomers worked day and night, tracking the origin point. After weeks of analysis, they found it. A star system almost 60 light-years away, in a sector humanity had never explored. The signal was weak, stretched thin by distance, but it repeated constantly, like a voice shouting into an endless storm. The alien world was unknown, but scans suggested it was rich with life. Orbiting telescopes spotted ruins of giant structures, and faint energy signatures hinted at advanced technology. But alongside these readings came darker signs: massive explosions in orbit, burned colonies, and the movement of hostile fleets. The attackers were identified through fragments of intercepted transmissions. They were called the Krell, a predatory species known only in rumors from deep space traders. They traveled in swarms, consuming resources, conquering weak worlds, and leaving nothing behind. Their arrival often meant extinction. Humanity's debate. The discovery split Earth in two. Billions of citizens watched the news, their hearts torn between hope and fear. Some argued that humanity should stay away. Earth was still healing from its own past wars, and resources were limited. Why risk lives for strangers? Others shouted that this was a chance to prove humanity's worth among the stars. In the Orbital Academy, cadets whispered about the signal with excitement. "Imagine meeting real aliens," one said. "Imagine saving them." Soldiers on Earth's fleet prepared their ships in secret drills, unsure if they would ever be called to fight. Meanwhile, the Vayari, the ones sending the distress call, continued to plead. Each message was filled with sorrow. The devourers burn our skies. They crush our temples. Where are the gods who promised to guard us? If light has mercy, send it. Every time humans heard these words, their hearts grew heavier. It was clear. The aliens believed only divine powers could save them, but the only response they had received was from Earth. The decision at last, after long weeks of arguments, the United Earth Council reached its choice. The vote was close, but the result was clear enough. Humanity would answer the call. Not because they were gods, not because they were stronger than all enemies, but because no one else would. A fleet would be sent, led by General Malik Chen himself. They would not go as conquerors nor as saviors from legend. They would go as humans, flawed, mortal, but unbroken. When the news reached the public, reactions were mixed. Some celebrated, proud that Earth would stand for others. Some wept, fearing the dangers awaiting their soldiers. And some simply watched the stars, wondering if this was the beginning of humanity's greatest test. Preparing for the unknown, the fleet assembled at Titan shipyards near Saturn. Dozens of warships floated, like metal giants, their engines glowing with new generation drives. Carriers loaded supplies while cruisers tested their weapons. Every ship bore the mark of Earth, a blue and white emblem showing the planet and a simple phrase beneath it, "For all." Young pilots wrote messages to their families, unsure if they would return. Engineers checked every system twice. The mood was heavy but determined. Humanity had always feared the silence of the universe. Now they had found voices within it, voices crying out for help, and they could not turn away. Dr. Alara Voss stood at the docks, watching the ships rise from the surface of Titan's frozen plains. She had never been a soldier, but she was chosen to join the mission as chief linguist. It would be her duty to speak with the Ve'ari, to show them that humans came not as gods, but as allies. General Chen approached her, his uniform sharp, his face steady despite the weight of command. "You understand the importance of this mission, Doctor?" "Yes," she said quietly. "They believe in deities, but they will find only us. We must make them believe in humanity." Chen nodded. "If humans cannot protect them, no deity will." Into the stars. The day of departure arrived. Across Earth, millions watched as the fleet rose into the dark. Engines blazed like comets as they left orbit, vanishing into the unknown. A cheer echoed from the cities below, mixed with silent prayers. The mission was clear. Find the Ve'ari, protect them from the Crawl, and prove that humanity's courage could reach beyond its own world. No one knew if they would succeed, or if they would ever come home. But every person aboard the fleet carried the same thought. Sometimes mortals must do what even gods cannot. The fleet of Earth moved like shining arrows through the darkness of space. Their engines glowed against the endless black, carrying them farther than any human mission had ever dared to go. Weeks passed, then months. The crew lived in rhythm, with the stars, training, studying, waiting. Every day they grew closer to the mysterious system where the distress call had come from. Dr. Alara Voss spent most of her hours in the communication chambers, studying the alien language. She listened to the repeating cries from the Ve'ari. At first their words had been broken, almost impossible to translate, but after long nights of work, she began to recognize patterns, tones, and even emotions in the voices. The Ve'ari sounded fragile, their voices trembling with fear. Each message was a prayer, a plea, a cry for salvation. The soldiers aboard the fleet often asked her about it. "What do they sound like?" one pilot said while checking his fighter's systems. Ilara paused before answering. "They sound like people who are losing hope." Arrival in the Ve'ari system at last, the fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel. The star of the system burned red, and around it circled several planets. On the third planet, green continents and shining oceans could be seen. That was the Ve'ari homeworld. But orbit was not peaceful. The human sensors detected scars in space, wreckage from destroyed ships, burnt colonies, and debris falling toward the planet. It was clear the Kral had already struck. Fires burned on the surface below, even visible from orbit. The bridge of the flagship Resolute was tense. General Malik Chen stood at the center, hands clasped behind his back. Officers reported incoming data. "Multiple energy readings, sir," said one lieutenant. "Defensive satellites destroyed. Civilian stations broken apart. No sign of active warships from the Vayari." "They never built any," Chen muttered. "They prayed instead of fighting." Dr. Ilara leaned over her console. "Signal detected." "From the surface." "It's the same frequency as before." The translation scrolled across her screen. "O Divine Ones, you have arrived. Save us, we beg you." Everyone on the bridge grew quiet. The aliens thought gods had come at last. Chen gave a firm order. "Prepare shuttles. We make contact." The Vayari, the landing was tense. Human shuttles descended through the clouds, engines cutting paths across the sky. The Vayari gathered in, great numbers near the landing zone. They were tall, slender beings with pale blue skin and luminous eyes. Flowing robes covered their thin frames, decorated with symbols of stars and light. Many carried staffs carved with crystal. They knelt as the shuttles touched down, whispering prayers. When the human soldiers stepped out armored in metal and holding rifles, the Vayari gasped. Some wept with joy. Others bowed their heads. They believed the gods had finally arrived to protect them. Dr. Ilara walked forward slowly, removing her helmet. The air was breathable enough, though heavy with smoke from recent fires. She held up her hands to show peace. One of the Vayari leaders, a tall figure with silver markings on his robes, approached. His voice trembled as he spoke in his language, but the translator on Ilara's wrist worked hard to catch the meaning. "O Shining Ones, you heard our cries. You descend from the heavens to guard us. We offer our devotion." Ilara felt her heart twist. They truly believed humans were divine beings. She took a careful breath and answered through the translator. "We are not gods," she said gently. "We are humans. We came because we heard your call. We came to protect you." The Vayari looked confused. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Some seemed afraid at the idea that their protectors were not deities. Others clung to hope, whispering that perhaps the gods worked through these mortals. Misunderstandings. The humans were brought into a great temple that had survived the attacks. It was built of white stone that shimmered faintly in the light. Inside, tall spires reached toward the sky, filled with symbols of stars and constellations. The Vayari priests lit torches, filling the hall with golden fire. The leader introduced himself as High Speaker Arivan. His eyes glowed softly as he studied the humans. "You say you are not divine, yet you crossed the endless dark. You arrive. With fire at your backs, you must be more than mortal." General Chen stepped forward. His voice was strong but calm. "We are mortal. We bleed, we suffer, we die, but we also fight. That is why we came. To stand against the devourers." Arivan lowered his head. "The Kral. Yes, they have burned our colonies, shattered our temples. We prayed for the stars to answer, for the guardians to come." He looked again at the humans. "Perhaps the guardians were human all along." The first attack, the meeting was interrupted by sirens. Outside, the skies darkened as Kral ships entered orbit. Their vessels were black, sharp, and insect-like, with glowing red cores. They began firing upon the planet almost at once. Explosions shook the ground, and towers of smoke rose from the horizon. Soldiers rushed to defend the landing site. Human warships in orbit moved into position, launching squadrons of fighters. The first real test had come sooner than expected. General Chen barked orders. "Form defensive lines. Protect the civilians." The Vayari panicked, running for cover. Many gathered in prayer, kneeling beneath the temple, whispering to silent gods. But the humans did not kneel. They stood, weapons ready, shields raised, eyes steady. As Kral dropships descended, human marines opened fire, bright streams of energy. lit the sky. Fighters roared overhead, chasing enemy craft. The battle was chaotic, smoke and fire filling the air. Dr. Alara stayed close to the temple, helping guide Vayari families into safety. She saw the fear in their luminous eyes, but also saw how they looked at the human soldiers. For the first time, they were seeing mortals stand in place of gods. Proof of strength. On the battlefield, Captain Juno Kale led her squad through the burning streets. They fought with precision, holding off waves of Krell warriors. The aliens were fierce, armored in black plates, their movements quick and violent. But the humans did not retreat. Step by step, they pushed the invaders back. When a group of Vayari saw Juno carrying one of their wounded children to safety, their prayers faltered. Instead of looking to the sky, they looked at her, a mortal, covered in dust and blood, refusing to give up. Hours later, the Krall retreated, their dropships fleeing back into orbit. The human fleet had held strong, destroying several enemy craft. The skies cleared slowly, leaving behind the smell of smoke and the cries of the living. A new understanding. That night, the humans and Vayari gathered in the temple once more. High Speaker Arivan stood before his people, his staff glowing faintly. Today the Devourers struck again, and yet we still stand, not because of silent gods, but because of these humans. They bleed, they fight, they protect. He lifted his hand toward General Chen and his soldiers. Perhaps it is not gods we need, but allies. Perhaps it is time we learn to protect ourselves with them. The Vayari murmured in agreement. For the first time, their eyes held more hope than fear. Dr. Alara wrote in her log that night, "The Vayari see us as something between mortals and gods. They are confused, afraid, but their trust grows. Today they saw that humanity stands where deities do not. This is only the beginning." General Chen, staring at the stars above, whispered, words that would echo through the coming war. If humans cannot protect them, no deity will. The fires of battle still smoldered across the Vayari city. Smoke rose into the sky, carrying the heavy scent of burned stone and broken lives. Though the humans had driven back the Krall attack, everyone knew it was not the end. The Devourers would return. They always returned, stronger than before. General Malik Chen stood on the walls of the damaged temple, looking out over the ruins. Soldiers repaired defenses, engineers patched shuttle hulls, and medics moved among the wounded. The Vayari watched with wide eyes, whispering among themselves. They had never seen such mortals before, people who faced the storm instead of hiding, in prayer. Dr. Alara Voss sat with a group of Vayari children, teaching them simple human words through her translator. Their fear softened as they repeated the sounds, their luminous eyes brightening with curiosity. She smiled, though inside her heart felt heavy. She knew the signal they had followed was more than a call for help. It was a cry from a people who had never learned to defend themselves. The Vayari's sorrow. That evening, High Speaker Arivan invited General Chen and Alara into the great temple's inner chamber. Its walls were lined with carvings of constellations, each glowing faintly in the firelight. The leader's voice was low with grief. "Our ancestors told us the stars were guarded," Arivan said. "That if danger came, the gods would shield. For ages we built temples, sang songs, and trusted. But when the Krall arrived, the heavens were silent. They tore down our cities, burned our fields, and scattered our families. Still we prayed, and still there was no answer." He turned his glowing eyes to Chen. "Until you came. But you are not gods. You bleed as we do. So why do you fight when the stars themselves did not?" Chen's gaze was steady. "Because life is worth fighting for. Not because of destiny, not because of divine order, simply because it is right." Alara added softly, "We humans know suffering. We have seen wars, famine, and despair. We learned that no god would stop those things for us. We had to stop them ourselves." The High Speaker bowed his head. "Then perhaps you are the lesson we were meant to learn, that mortals must stand where gods are absent." The Krall threat grows report soon arrived from human scouts patrolling the system. The Krall were massing. Entire swarms of their ships gathered on the edge of Vayari space. Their numbers dwarfed the human fleet, If they attacked at full strength, not even Earth's finest warships could hold the line for long. On the flagship, resolute officers gathered around the strategy table. Maps of the system glowed above them, marked with enemy positions. "We cannot match them in numbers," one captain said grimly. "Then we use what we do have," Chen replied. "Discipline, courage, tactics." But even he knew the odds were against them. Unless the Veyari themselves learned to fight, their world would fall no matter how brave the humans were. Teaching the Veyari. And so the humans began to teach. Soldiers trained groups of Veyari in the art of defense, how to hold a weapon, how to build fortifications, how to stand together instead of waiting for unseen gods. At first the Veyari trembled, their hands weak and unsteady. Many still whispered prayers as they tried to aim rifles. But slowly, day by day, something changed. They saw humans rise before dawn, drill until their muscles ached, and still keep going. They watched medics treat wounded strangers as if they were family. They heard engineers laugh while repairing machines under fire. The Veyari began to understand. Strength was not a gift from the stars. It was built by mortal hands. Ilara. Translated speeches given by human officers, though one in particular stayed in her mind. Captain Juno Kyle stood before a group of Veyari recruits and said, "You look at us and see mortals. That is true. We are mortal. But being mortal is no weakness. It is strength. Because when we fall, we rise again. When we bleed, we fight harder. And when our enemies think we are finished, we prove them wrong." The Veyari listened, their luminous eyes shining with a new fire. The Krall's return. The warning came sooner than expected. Scouts reported Krall ships breaking into the system, a vanguard of the greater swarm. Their black vessels descended like shadows, moving fast toward the planet. General Chen wasted no time. "To stations," he ordered. "This is the test. Hold the skies!" The fleet rose to meet the enemy. Cruisers fired blazing beams, carriers launched fighters that streaked across the void like shooting stars. The Krall responded with savage fury, their ships swarming in coordinated waves. On the ground, human marines and newly trained Veyari stood side by side behind barricades. Dropships pierced the atmosphere, delivering squads of insect-like warriors armed with cruel blades. The defenders opened fire, the night sky filled with light. For the first time, the Veyari did not hide in temples. They fought. Their hands shook, their shots were clumsy, but they did not run. They saw humans beside them, mortal protectors who stood firm, and they found strength in that example. Bravery in the fire captain Juno Kale's squad held the ruins of a collapsed bridge. Krall warriors advanced across the rubble, shrieking. Juno led a charge, her rifle blazing, rallying both her soldiers and the Veyari. Nearby, a young Veyari recruit named Seelan froze as a Krall lunged toward him. He had never killed before. His hands shook. Then he saw a human soldier step in front of him, taking the blow on his armor, firing back even as sparks flew. Seelan screamed and fired his own weapon, striking the Krall down. For the first time in his life, he felt the weight of choice and the power of action. All across the battlefield, such moments occurred. Humans carried the wounded, shielded the weak, and never retreated. The Veyari began to mirror them, shouting war cries instead of prayers. The captive. The battle raged for hours. At last, the humans captured a wounded Krall warrior. Its black, armor cracked, its red eyes burning with hatred. Through the translator, it spat words filled with venom. "We will never stop. The weak are our feast. The Veyari are prey, nothing more. You humans are fools to stand with them. You will die with them." General Chen stared down at the creature, his voice like steel. "Then remember this. Humans do not abandon the helpless. We are not gods. We are worse, for we are mortals who will never stop fighting." The Krall hissed in rage, but the message was clear. Aftermath, when the smoke cleared, the Krall vanguard had been repelled. Many human soldiers were injured, but they had held the line. More importantly, the Veyari had fought. For the first time in their history, they had defended their own people with their own hands. In the temple that night, High Speaker Arivan addressed both his people and the humans. His voice echoed in the great hall. The gods did not come, but humanity did. And in their courage, we have seen the truth. The devourers can be fought. They can be resisted. We must no longer kneel to silent heavens. We must rise and fight with our new allies. The crowd of Vayari, once hopeless and broken, now cheered with voices loud and strong. Ilara wrote in her log, "This was the test of fire. Humanity proved itself, and the Vayari began to believe. Not in gods, not in miracles, but in mortals who refuse to yield. The war is far from over, but hope now burns where despair once lived." General Chen, looking at the stars where the rest of the Kral swarm waited, spoke quietly to himself. This was only the beginning. The true storm is still coming. The skies over the Vayari homeworld were alive with movement. Dozens of human warships patrolled orbit, while smaller fighter squadrons darted between clouds of smoke and debris. The planet below, scarred by previous Kral attacks, had begun to show signs of recovery. Engineers repaired collapsed buildings and civilians returned cautiously to their homes. But no one doubted the Kral would return. And soon. General Malik Chen stood on the bridge of the flagship Resolute, watching the blinking lights of orbiting vessels. His jaw was tense. They had survived the first battles, trained the Vayari to fight and repelled attacks, but the enemy was growing stronger. The Kral's full armada loomed somewhere in deep space, larger than the human fleet could face alone. "Admiral," said Captain Juno Kale, stepping forward, "our scouts report multiple enemy clusters converging from the outer systems. They're preparing for a full strike. Soon, they will be here." Chen nodded. "Then we make our stand. Earth taught us to fight against impossible odds. Today, we teach the Vayari the same, preparing for the final battle." The humans moved quickly. Shuttles carried soldiers to strategic locations, while orbital bombardments cleared Kral positions near the planet's surface. The Vayari, still trembling at first, now moved with purpose. They built barricades, installed energy shields, and helped guide civilians to underground shelters. High Speaker Arivan observed the preparations, his glowing eyes thoughtful. He approached Dr. Ilara Voss as she oversaw training drills for young Vayari fighters. "They are learning fast," he said. "But will it be enough? They still fear the devourers more than they trust themselves." Ilara nodded. "They will fight. They now know what it means to survive, to see humans stand without fear, to see humans carry hope into fire. They understand courage is not a gift. It is a choice." The Vayari still struggled with old beliefs. Some whispered prayers to silent gods, hoping for miracles. But every time a human soldier led them through drills or rescued someone from danger, their trust shifted. They began to see that mortals, not deities, would protect them. Human leadership, General Chen addressed both humans and Vayari leaders in a grand hall that had survived the earlier attacks. Maps of the system glowed in holograms above, showing Kral positions and defensive lines. "Today," Chen began, his voice deep and firm, "we face an enemy that believes no one can stop them. They see weakness in us, but we are not weak. We fight not because we are immortal, not because the stars watch over us, but because we are humans. And humans do not abandon the helpless." The Vayari listened, captivated. They had seen their temples fail, their prayers unanswered. Now standing beside these mortals, they felt a sense of protection they had never known. Chen continued, "The Kral believe in only power and fear. We will show them courage. We will show them unity, and we will show them that even mortal hands can shape the fate of worlds." The hall erupted in cheers. The Vayari, now armed and prepared, shouted alongside the humans. It was a sound of hope, of defiance, of mortal strength rising where gods were silent. The approach of the Kral hours later, scouts reported the enemy fleet closing in. Thousands of Kral vessels emerged from the darkness, black shapes blotting out the stars. Their advance was relentless. Each ship bristled with weapons designed to destroy planets and fleets alike. Chen surveyed the formation of human and Vayari ships. They were outnumbered, vastly outnumbered, but every ship, every soldier, and every fighter was ready. This was a stand that would define the fate of the system. "Lock all shields," Chen commanded. "Fighters to launch bays. Everyone to battle. Stations. Today we hold." Ilara watched the preparations from the communication deck. Her heart pounded as she monitored Vayari ground forces, guiding them through final defensive setups. Despite fear in their eyes, they moved with determination. "You see?" she said quietly to a Vayari officer beside her. "They are not gods, but they protect. That is what counts." The officer nodded slowly. "Perhaps humanity is more powerful than our temples ever promised." The battle begins. The Kral struck first, waves of ships firing energy beams and dropping their landing forces onto the planet. Explosions ripped through cities, black smoke rising like banners of war. But human fighters engaged immediately, weaving through enemy fire, hitting critical points with precise strikes. On the ground, Marines led the Vayari in defending key positions. Energy shields blazed, defensive turrets fired with deadly accuracy, and Vayari archers, trained by humans, released pulses of light energy at the advancing Kral. Though they were slower and less experienced, their courage grew with every wave they repelled. Captain Juno Kale moved through the chaos, rallying troops and civilians alike. She lifted a fallen Vayari fighter to safety, then turned to engage a Kral squadron. Every action she took inspired the Vayari watching her. Mortals, they realized, could stand where gods had not. Sacrifice and bravery, hours passed, and the Kral's assault intensified. Human ships took damage, fighters were destroyed, and soldiers fell on the ground. Yet no one retreated. Every loss was met with renewed determination. In the northern sector, a young Vayari recruit named Selin faced his first real test. A Kral warrior lunged at a group of civilians hiding in the ruins. Selin froze, his hands shaking as he aimed his weapon. He remembered Captain Juno's words. Courage is a choice. He fired. The Kral fell. Selin's eyes widened, realizing he had done what he never imagined possible. Behind him, humans cheered. The Vayari saw that even fragile mortals could protect the helpless. Meanwhile, engineers worked under fire, repairing critical systems. Medics treated wounded soldiers and civilians, often risking their lives to reach those in danger. Every act of bravery strengthened the bond between humans and Vayari. Turning the tide by the middle of the battle, the Kral had begun to waver. Their vanguard had been repelled multiple times, their forces divided by coordinated human attacks and the unexpected Vayari resistance. The humans had proven that strategy, courage, and unity could outweigh raw power. General Chen saw the opportunity. All units push forward, show them that mortals will not yield. The human fleet engaged in a final coordinated strike, targeting the Kral's command vessels. Fighters swooped in from multiple directions, bombarding enemy ships while human cruisers unleashed concentrated fire. On the planet below, Vayari forces, led by human marines, pressed their advantage. The Kral shrieked in rage and retreat, their formation breaking apart. Slowly, the battle turned in favor of humans and their allies. A moment of reflection. When the last Kral retreating vessel vanished into space, silence fell. The Vayari looked around at the destruction, cities damaged, forests burned, but they also saw their people alive, their friends and families protected. High Speaker Arivan approached General Chen, bowing low. "You said humans would protect us. Today we have seen it. Today we have learned that gods are not needed when courage stands beside us." Ilara smiled, watching children play among the ruins, now safe after the terrifying hours. "They fought because they had to," she said softly. "Not because they were promised protection, but because they chose to fight. That is the lesson of humanity." Chen nodded. "If humans cannot protect them, no deity will. But we did, and that is enough. Hope for the future." That night, fires burned in celebration, not just from victory, but from a newfound understanding. The Vayari sang songs not to gods but to their human allies, honoring their courage. Temples that had once been places of silent prayer became centers of training and community, teaching the Veyari that action, not devotion, ensured survival. Elara recorded in her log, "Humanity has passed the first great test. We have shown the Veyari that courage, strategy, and determination can change destiny. They now fight with us, not for gods, but for life itself. This is the essence of protection. This is the essence of hope." General Chen gazed at the stars above, knowing the war was far from over. The Kral would return, stronger, more ruthless, but now humans and Veyari stood together, prepared to meet the storm. "Humanity's stand is only the beginning," Chen said quietly. "And we will not fail." The aftermath of battle left the Veyari world scarred, but alive. Cities bore the marks of Kral attacks, towers reduced to rubble, forests singed, and roads broken by fire and war machines. Yet among the ruins, life persisted. Humans and Veyari worked side by side, clearing debris, treating the wounded, and rebuilding what had been destroyed. General Malik Chen walked through one of the rebuilt districts, observing Veyari families returning to homes they had abandoned in fear. Human soldiers moved with them, helping carry supplies, repairing walls, and comforting the frightened. Each action reminded the Veyari of a truth they had slowly come to accept. Humans might bleed and tire, but they would never abandon those in need. Dr. Alara Voss moved among a group of young Veyari students, teaching them strategies for defense and survival. The children were eager, repeating human drills with precision. Their once timid voices now carried confidence. One small boy asked, "Will the Kral come again?" Ilara smiled gently. "Perhaps. But now you know how to stand, how to fight, and how to protect one another. You are never alone." Celebrating courage in the great temple of the Veyari capital, a ceremony was held. The once sacred halls, previously reserved for prayers to silent gods, now hosted songs and speeches celebrating mortal courage. Humans and Veyari alike gathered to honor the soldiers who had defended the planet and the Veyari who had found strength within themselves. High Speaker Arivan addressed the crowd, his luminous eyes reflecting both sorrow and pride. "We prayed for guardians of light, but no gods answered. Yet mortals came. They bled, they fought, and they protected us. Today, we honor not divinity, but humanity. Today, we learn that courage can come in many forms, but its greatest form is action." The Veyari citizens clapped and cheered, their voices mingling with the sounds of human celebration. Children waved small flags that bore both the Earth emblem and the Veyari sigil, a symbol of unity forged in fire and courage. Teaching and alliance human soldiers remained on the planet, not as conquerors or rulers, but as teachers, mentors, and protectors. They trained Veyari engineers to repair technology, medics to treat the wounded, and strategists to plan defenses. Together, humans and Veyari designed systems to detect Kral movements far beyond the planet, building early warning stations and patrol ships. Dr. Alara observed the collaboration with satisfaction. "They are learning faster than I imagined," she said to a Veyari officer beside her. "They see now that protection is not granted by gods, but by those willing to act." The Veyari officer nodded. "You have shown us the value of mortal hands. The courage of humans has become our legacy." The Kral retreat. In the depths of space, scouts reported that the Kral had retreated to distant systems. Their losses were heavy, and morale was shaken. Word of the human-led defense spread throughout the Kral fleets. Many of their commanders had underestimated mortals, believing them weak and easily broken. Now, tales of human courage, strategy, and unwavering defense traveled faster than ships. On the Veyari homeworld, people no longer whispered of silent gods. They spoke of humans, those who had arrived from distant stars, mortals who had faced impossible odds and refused to yield. Temples that once echoed with empty prayers now echoed with stories of bravery, lessons of resilience, and the knowledge that survival depended on action, not devotion. Bonds forged in battle over time, the bond between humans and Veyari deepened. Joint patrols flew through orbit, keeping watch for signs of returning Kral forces. Communities rebuilt with both human and Vayari hands, exchanging knowledge, culture, and friendship. Captain Juno Kyle and her squad often trained alongside Vayari fighters, laughing as they shared tactics and practiced drills. The Vayari were no longer timid. They were capable, confident, and ready. Every child who had once hidden in temples now learned the value of courage, teamwork, and vigilance. Dr. Ilara recorded in her log, "The Vayari have discovered that their strength does not come from silent prayers. It comes from action, from bravery, from the will to stand when the world threatens to fall. Humanity has shown them the way, and they are learning quickly. They will survive because they choose to survive." Reflections of humanity as the sun set over the rebuilt cities. General Chen stood with Dr. Ilara and High Speaker Arivan atop one of the tallest towers. The landscape below was dotted with fires of celebration, repaired homes, and newly planted fields. The Vayari were no longer passive observers of fate. Chen's voice was quiet but firm. "We came here because no god would answer their cries. We came because humans answer when action is needed. That is who we are." Arivan bowed his head, acknowledging the truth. "You have not only protected us but taught us. Today we see that the power to survive rests in those willing to act, not those we pray to." Ilara looked toward the horizon. "The war may not be over, but we have done something more than survive. We have given them hope, and hope is stronger than fear." A message across the stars. Before leaving the planet, the humans sent messages across the galaxy. Using the Vayari communication networks, they broadcast a clear statement. "To all who may hear us, if humans cannot protect you, no deity will. But if humans stand with you, we will fight with every ounce of courage and strength we have. You are not alone." The Vayari watched as the signal traveled into the void. It carried a simple but powerful promise, not one of miracles or divine intervention, but one of mortal courage and steadfast protection. Legacy of protection. Years passed, and the Vayari homeworld transformed. Their society, once fragile and dependent on faith, now flourished with the knowledge and experience humans had shared. They built defensive fleets, patrol stations, and academies for training new generations in both technology and courage. Humans returned to Earth, but their impact remained. Vayari scholars, engineers, and soldiers remembered every lesson, every battle, and every mortal who had stood where gods were silent. Children grew up hearing stories of human bravery, inspired to carry the legacy forward. Ilara often returned to the planet for missions and teaching. She watched the Vayari walk confidently among the rebuilt cities, no longer trembling at the thought of enemies, no longer relying on prayers alone. The lesson had been learned. Survival, courage, and protection came from those willing to act. High Speaker Arivan once told her, "Your people gave us more than defense. You gave us belief in ourselves. That is a gift no god could have given." Final reflection. On the day of the last celebration marking the repelled Kral attacks, General Chen looked up at the stars. The void beyond was vast, filled with unknown threats, yet humanity had proven its worth. He whispered to no one in particular, but the words carried far beyond the walls of the city. "If humans cannot protect you, no deity will. But we will always answer the call." Across the galaxy, civilizations began to hear the story of humanity. The mortals who stood where gods fell silent, who carried hope into the darkness, and who proved that courage, unity, and action were stronger than fear. In the end, the Vayari would remember not divine saviors but humans, the mortals who became their guardians, teachers, and friends. Their legacy would be one of protection, courage, and the knowledge that when no god arrives, mortals can rise to shape their own destiny. Tirtur. Stars were silent, but humanity had spoken, and that voice was enough.